I always knew what I wanted to be, not just a passing interest or a childhood fantasy. I wanted to be a basketball player from the moment I could understand what dreams were. It wasn't about fame or money or even trophies. It was about the way the court felt like home, the way the ball echoed in an empty gym felt like a heartbeat that matched mine. I was 6 when I saw my first NBA game on TV. The speed, the precision, the roar of the crowd, it was electric. I sat cross-legged in front of the screen, eyes wide, heart pounding, thinking, that's it. That's what I want. From that moment on, I was obsessed. I dribbled with tennis balls in the hallway, practiced free throws using a laundry basket, and spent entire afternoons drawing up plays I didn't even understand. But in my house, dreams weren't really dreams, they were liabilities. My dad used to play too. He was good, not NBA good, but the kind of good that made local headlines and got neighborhood kids to crowd around the court just to watch. He once told me he could have made it if things had gone differently, if he hadn't gotten injured, if the scout had called back, if life had given him a break. But instead of chasing a comeback, he buried the dream, called it foolish, said it was better to focus on something real. When I told him I wanted to play, really play, he gave me that look, that mix of disappointment and fear masked as concern. You think you're gonna make it? He asked. You think you're the one in a million? I didn't know how to answer. I just nodded, too scared to say yes out loud. My mom wasn't harsh, but she worried all the time. She saw the world as one big storm and wanted me to carry an umbrella, not a ball. Basketball doesn't pay bills, she'd say while folding laundry. What if you get hurt? What if it doesn't work out? So I learned to keep my passion quiet. I practiced in secret, woke up before dawn to shoot in silence at the local park while the city slept. I stayed after school under the excuse of study group just to get in gym time. I joined a city league under a different name, borrowing an old pair of sneakers from a friend 2 sizes too big, and when I made the all-star team at 15, I forged their signatures on the release forms. I wasn't trying to be rebellious, I was just trying to be me. Basketball was the one place where I didn't have to shrink, where I wasn't just someone's son or student or problem. I was a player, I was enough. But secrets have a way of surfacing. My dad found out the summer before my junior year. He showed up to one of my games unannounced. He didn't cheer, didn't wave, he just sat in the back row, arms crossed, watching like a man at a funeral after the game. He didn't yell, he didn't even look angry, he just said, "We're done." He sold my gear the next day, transferred me to a new school with no sports program, and doubled down on making me focus. Suddenly, my life became nothing but textbooks and silence. I felt like a ghost in my own skin. I stopped smiling in pictures, stopped speaking at dinner. I skipped classes, then skipped weeks. Eventually, I dropped out altogether. No one stopped me, they just shook their heads, said, "We told you so," and moved on. I started driving a cab at 19, told myself it was temporary, just to earn some cash, just until I figured things out. But days blurred into years, the dream faded like chalk on pavement after a storm. Still, I kept a ball in the trunk always, just in case. Sometimes, I'd stop by a court on a break and just watch, not to play, just to remember what it felt like to want something so bad it burned, what it felt like to believe. But I didn't tell anyone about that part of me to the world. I was a driver with bills and a busted knee to myself. I was a boy who lost his fire and didn't know how to relight it until one night, the past found me again. But that's another chapter. It started with one ride, just one regular Tuesday night, when I picked up a teenage boy from the community center across town. He was wearing a beat-up hoodie, his gym bag slung over his shoulder, and sneakers that had clearly seen better days. He slid into the back seat, quiet at first, but I noticed the way he clutched that bag like it held something sacred. I asked if he played. He nodded, then mumbled, "Point guard, 510. Fast but not tall enough." I laughed and said, "That's all heart position." Anyway, he looked up, surprised, like he didn't expect me to know the language. We talked, not a lot, but enough. He told me his parents didn't believe in basketball as a future, said he should focus on real goals. Sounded familiar. I didn't tell him everything, just enough to let him know he wasn't alone. And when he got out of the cab, I said something that came from somewhere deep inside me. "Keep playing," I told him, "even when it feels like no one cares. Especially then." He smiled. It wasn't big or dramatic, but it was real. That night, something shifted in me. I sat in the driver's seat long after my shift ended, hands on the wheel, heart full and aching all at once. I realized I missed something I had buried, not the career, not the spotlight, but the feeling, the way a basketball in your hand could make the world fall away, the way you could lose yourself in movement and sweat and rhythm. The next day, I drove past the courts I used to haunt. They were full of kids yelling, running, falling, laughing. Something pulled at me. I parked, sat on the bench, watched a game like a man starved, and when one of the balls rolled toward me, I picked it up, held it, spun it in my hands like it was a relic from another life. I didn't shoot, not yet, but I came back the next day and the next. Eventually, I started talking to the coaches, offered to help clean up, then to run a drill, then to coach the under-12 team when their guy bailed 2 weeks before season start. I didn't feel ready, but I said yes. That first practice was chaos. Kids forgot their shoes, they chased each other more than the ball, they cried when they missed. They bragged when they hit, and I loved every second. I went home that night and stayed up until 3 a.m. watching coaching tutorials, writing drills on sticky notes, and sketching practice plans like I was preparing for the NBA Finals. I wasn't the player I thought I'd become, but I was something else, something I never expected. A guide, a believer, a builder. These kids didn't care about my past, they didn't ask why I drove a cab, they just wanted to be seen, heard, taught, and I gave them everything I had. At our first game, we lost by 20 points, but they came off the court smiling, high-fiving, already asking when practice was. It wasn't about winning, not for them, it was about trying, about being part of something that felt real. We practiced hard, improved fast, and when we made it to the regional semi-finals, it felt like the championship. We lost by 2 points on a buzzer beater. The kids cried like it was the end of the world, and I cried too, but not out of disappointment, out of pride, because they played their hearts out and they reminded me what it meant to fight for something, to believe again. That night, I drove home with the windows down, the wind in my face, and tears I didn't bother to wipe away. Not sad tears, just human ones, because I had found my dream again, not in the way I imagined, but in a way that mattered even more, and I knew this was just the beginning. Years passed, but the feeling never faded. Every season brought new kids, new stories, new reasons to keep showing up. I still drove a cab during the day, but my evenings belonged to the court, to the drills, the laughter, the scraped knees and missed shots. We didn't have much. The community center's roof leaked when it rained. Our jerseys were donated, mismatched sizes and all, but we made it work, because what we lacked in resources, we made up for in heart. The kids came from all kinds of homes. Some had 2 parents, some had none, some came hungry, some came angry, but they all came, and they came because they knew I'd be there, because they knew the lights would be on and the door unlocked and someone would care, and I cared more than I ever thought possible. I learned their stories, held space for their fears, cheered their smallest victories like they were gold medals. I became the man I needed when I was their age, not perfect, not rich, but present, consistent, safe. One of the boys, Malik, had a stutter and barely spoke in class, but on the court, he found rhythm. He called plays, shouted picks, directed teammates like a symphony conductor. His teacher said he changed. I just smiled. Another girl, Jasmine, came to practice the day after her mother got arrested. She didn't cry, she didn't talk, she just shot free throws until her hands blistered. I didn't push, I just passed her the ball over and over until one day, she passed it back and smiled. That smile was everything. Coaching taught me that healing isn't loud, it's not a big speech or a dramatic breakthrough. Sometimes it's just showing up again and again until someone starts to believe they matter. We built a family not by blood, but by effort, by showing up, by sweating and learning and falling and getting back up together. One year, our team made it all the way to the city finals. I rented a bus with my own money, packed sandwiches, and made sure every kid had clean socks and laced shoes. We lost that game too, but no one cared. Parents cried, kids hugged me so tight I thought I'd fall over. I stood on that court, surrounded by the echoes of cheers and sneakers on hardwood, and I realized something. I hadn't failed. My dream hadn't died. It had changed. It had evolved. It had become something bigger than me. I hadn't become a star, I became a spark. And sometimes, that's even better. Years later, one of my old players came back. He was taller now, stronger, had a scholarship offer in hand. He said, "Coach, I never told you this, but I was gonna quit everything before I met you." Then he handed me his first college jersey, said, "This is yours too." I cried right there in the parking lot like a kid, not because I missed my chance, but because I finally understood my purpose wasn't to shine alone, it was to help others find their light, to be the person I once needed. And now, as I stand in this old gym, the same cracked court and flickering lights, I feel nothing but gratitude, because sometimes the dream you thought they killed is just waiting to be reborn in someone else's hands, and maybe, just maybe, that's even more powerful.